They participate.
Audio Jungle.
Welcome to another Upper Room Update. I'm Matthew Coleman, and with me today is Christina Coleman. But first, we're going to start with sports and the Jeopardy game. Then we'll go to announcements. So, everyone get ready for your answers. It's going to go quick. We're going to start with video games for 500. This was the first video game played in space. Christina, what do you think the first video game played in space was?
I have no idea.
Dig Dug.
Probably Galaga, Centipede. Who knows? We'll find out. What do you think it was? Remember to phrase your answers like questions. So it'd be, what was Dig Dug? So, the correct answer is, what was the Game Boy version of Tetris? Anybody win that one?
Nobody answered.
Wow.
Actually, Reed Hilton. He said Tetris. But,
Reed Hilton.
So we'll give it to Reed Hilton.
Good job. You got a partial answer. We'll give you partial credit.
All right. We'll give you full credit. 500.
So, next one we have is sports for 300. You want to read this one? Okay. I'm what it is called when a bowler makes 3 strikes in a row.
Ooh.
Oh, I know this one.
I do too. That's a hat trick.
It's a Phoenix Rising.
Hat trick, right? If you get 3 goals in soccer, it's a hat trick. So if you knock down 3 strikes in a row, it's a hat
I thought
trick.
it was the
right?
Triple Crown.
I think it's a hat trick. A triple, it could be triple crown. I've heard that in sports
Yeah,
too.
I've heard that one.
Yep.
Huh.
Reed Hilton says, yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts on it? Triple crown. Hat trick. Anybody else? All right, we're gonna do the response, and if I don't get an answer here in just a moment, some people might be answering at home, but it's taking a while to go across the system. All
Yeah,
right,
space and all that.
let's go to the response.
And the correct answer is gobble gobble turkey.
What'd you call Christina? All right, all right. Who's next?
All right, let's go to Forsyth Eats for 400. If you have been scattered all over Monroe County, come to our home. We will have you covered with all your favorite eats.
That's easy. That's the Huddle House.
If you have been scattered all over Monroe County, come to our house, and we will have you covered with all your favorite eats.
I really like that hint Pastor Nathan threw out there.
Hint? That's not a hint. That's the answer.
Huddle. Isn't that what everybody was doing the other night?
No. 6
Reed
feet
Hilton
apart.
said turkey. Reed, are you answering after we put the answers up there? All right. Right now, we're going to give Reed the points for the first 2. So he's got 900 points, I believe. Is that right? No? What was the second?
800.
800. 800 points for Reed.
Yep. This
Waiting to
one's
see if
400.
anybody guesses on this one. We got 400 points available. Anybody responding? Drew, Grant, Reagan, Gracie, Sean, Evan, any of my peeps out there with an answer? Reed Hilton said no. All right, let's go to response.
All right. I believe the correct answer would be Waffle House.
Oh man, I just knew it was going to be Huddle House. All right, couple more questions.
Famous for their waffles. Movies for 100.
Movies for 100. Oh, this is a cheap one. We should be able to get this.
Oh,
He does the voice of Woody in the Toy Story movies.
Oh, that's the guy that played Han
that's
Solo
Hank
in Star
Williams
Wars, right?
Jr.
Hank Williams Jr.
That's-
No,
yeah.
what's his name? The one who played Han Solo.
I always liked that Bubba Gump shrimp.
Bubba Grump Shrimp. So you think it was Bubba Gump?
Right.
I gotcha. All right. Anybody? Reed Hilton said he is not cheating. He's putting in the answer, but it's late coming in. All right. So we trust him. We'll take his word for it.
Sure.
All right. Reed said no one's here right now. Where is everybody tonight? Usually we got people on. We've been having like 17 people watching every week. There's Lisa Bennett. This is Megan. All right, Megan. What's the answer? Who does the voice of Woody in Toy Story? Anybody?
Hint, all the Toy Stories.
All the Toy Stories. His wife had coronavirus and got better from it.
Yeah, both of them.
Both of them had it and got better from
Yeah,
it.
they relocated to, I think, Australia temporarily.
I think so.
Yeah.
They went down under.
Wah, wah,
Reed
wah.
Hilton said Tom Hanks. Good job, Reed.
Woo!
All right, he just got off Google.
That's
There
right.
you go. All
Tom
right.
Hanks. That's what's taking him so long to answer. And last but not
Hey, you
least,
given
we
you-
have.
Wait. Hold on. Jolie Moore said Tom Hanks also at the same time, so we're gonna give them both the points.
All right.
So
Okay.
Jolie's
Good
out
That's
there.
job.
100.
All right, so
Way to represent Jolie.
Jolie's got 100 and Reed has what? 700?
800.
800 right now. All right, what's our next
Because he
question?
didn't get Waffle House. We have Moco Locos for 500.
Moco Loco. So this is Monroe County
500.
locations
Yep.
for 500.
If you see the rare eagle or other birdies, you may be at this location.
Oh, that's what do they call the thing over there by Plant Share?
The lake.
Yeah, the lake, but isn't it got like a Georgia Wildlife Area Management? Georgia? It's
They
not-
got a bird viewing area.
Yeah, there's a bird viewing over there. You can see the eagles and the birdies over there. They got all kinds of birdies over there. Ospreys.
Hawks.
Yeah.
Sure, there's lots of pigeons.
What is that thing called? It's the Dames Ferry Wildlife Management Area, is that it? Something like that?
It's actually a state park.
State Park, yeah,
Mhm.
see? I think that's the answer. Dames Ferry Wildlife Management Area. Jacob Moore just came in with Tom Hanks. All right, that is not the right answer for this one.
Though he could pass for a plausible eagle.
I think what's happening is Jacob Moore probably put in Tom Hanks a long time ago, and it just now came through. So the system's running a little slow. That's understandable with as many people as at home on their computers. So, anybody have an answer for this one? If you see the rare eagle or other birdies, you may be at this location. All right, what you think? Honest answer, Matt. What do you think?
You want me to actually give the answer away?
Yep.
Country Club Golf Course in Munter County.
All right, Christina, what you think?
I don't.
You don't?
I don't know.
It could be that place up there on Johnstonville Road. What's that golf course called?
I've never been there, don't know.
It's the Forsyth Golf Course.
That's right.
All right, Jacob Moore said Purdue Chicken Hatchery. That's a good guess, though.
That was a good guess.
Any more on that?
That's all.
Good job, everybody.
Good job, everybody.
Welcome back from the sports edition. We're going to be going over to the local updates. Christina, would you like to announce our local updates?
Well, in a wonderful praise announcement, we have Madeline Sanders just returned home this week on Monday. We actually had a queue of vehicles lined up to cheer her on, and Joy and Vern returning also, and so huge celebration and continued prayers for them.
That was
So,
an amazing time. Lots of unicorns.
Yep.
Madeline's favorite animal is, of course, a unicorn. And other news, young man that most of you may know, Justin Nash, he contracted corona, but he's over it. His body did exactly what God designed it to do, and he came out full tilt swinging. So, now, on to our feature update. Noah's flood. Worldwide cataclysm or local phenomena? Does it matter? Does the Bible really say it was global? And is there any evidence outside the Bible for such a flood? Evolutionists claim that the universe has been around for more than 13 billion years. This gives more than enough time to have fossils, oil, and variation of the species. However, creationists commonly believe that the universe, Earth, and humans have only existed for about 10,000 years. If that is truly the case, how could fossils, oil, coal, and various landmarks exist? Perhaps an ancient cataclysm could help us explain this. To dive deeper into this mystery, we go to Christina. Christina?
Thank you, Matthew. So many people and some Christians claim that the flood of Noah was only a local flood. They claim it was confined to an area around the Mesopotamian region and didn't literally cover the entire world. Let's look at God's statement to Noah, found in Genesis chapter 6, verse 13. So God said to Noah, I am going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I am surely going to destroy both of them and the earth. Then in verses 17 through 18 he says, I am going to bring floodwaters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens. Every creature that has the breath of life in it, everything on earth, will perish. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons, and your wife, and your sons' wives with you. The accepted view of a local flood is due to the widely taught idea of an evolutionary earth. Scientists once understood the fossils to be mostly the result of the Great Flood, but somewhere around the 1800s that began to change under the teaching of Charles Lyell. Those who now believe in the evolutionary billions of years have, in their way of thinking, explained away the evidence for Noah's flood, hence their belief in a local flood. The local flood idea is completely inconsistent with the Bible. If the flood was local, why did Noah need to build the ark? His family could have simply walked to a region that was not going to be flooded. If the flood was only a local flood, why did the birds need to be on the ark?
Don't know, Christina.
They could have simply flown away to a distant land where there was no flood. And if Noah's flood was only a local event, how could the waters have risen to 15 cubits or 8 meters above the mountains, as stated in Genesis 7:20?
That boggles the mind, Christina.
Wait, what's this? I'm just now getting word that we have our man Evan on location to show us what a local flood may have looked like. Evan?
Evan, can you hear us out there? It might be a little loud.
Okay. Seem to be having some technical difficulty.
We might be picking up.
Oh,
Evan, it's a little dangerous.
We're getting something. Sorry. It's coming through.
Up there. Yep.
Okay. Oh, here we go.
What do you mean there was water damage? It rained for 10 minutes. That is not possible.
I love you guys. All right. Seriously. Okay, I got it. I love you. Thank you.
All those in favor of the Public Land Act, please signify by saying aye.
Well, as you can see, a local flood would have had no real impact with the early warning Noah received from God. So let's look at Genesis 6, chapter 3, and also Genesis 7:6. So Genesis 6:3 says, "Then the Lord said, My spirit will not contend with man forever, for he's mortal. His days will be 120 years. Then if we look over in Genesis 7:6, it says, Noah was 600 years old when the floodwaters came on the earth. If we refer back to the earlier scriptures, we know that Noah's sons had time to grow up, get married, and kind of maybe have families of their own. So therefore, we can speculate somewhere between 70 and 120 years, Noah had plenty of time to prepare. So, if that's the case, he wouldn't have needed an ark for such an event. That would just be ridiculous if it were only a local flood. And the animals could have just walked out of the area. Back to you, Matt.
Well, Christina, that's certainly something. And I think that our weatherman out there is going to have a lot of explaining to do on Capitol Hill. Anywho, but what of the evidence in the geologic record? All around the world in the rock layer after rock layer, we find billions of dead things that have been buried in water-carried mud and sand. Their state of frequencies tells of rapid burial and fossilization, just like you would expect to find in a Noah-like cataclysmic flood. There is abundant evidence that many of the rocky strata or individual layers of rock, were laid down quickly, one after the other, without significant time between them. Preservation of animal tracks, ripple marks, and even raindrop marks testify of rapid covering of these features and enable their preservation. Polystrate fossils, fossils that traverse many layers of strata, speak of very quick building up or deposition of the strata. Also, the lack of erosion, various soil formations, animal burrows, or even roots between these layers show that they must have been deposited very quickly. There is evidence of these features all around the world, in fact. Even right here in the United States of America, in the state of Tennessee, there is an example of a polystrate tree fossil at that location. I've never actually seen one of those. Have you seen one of those
I
before?
haven't, no, I haven't.
When I heard of this, it just boggled my mind. Just think of, according to evolution, all those millions of years that tree must have been just hanging out right there. But furthermore, in Australia, a land very favorable to us, as we have several of our own people from here at NPBC who go to that land frequently or hail from it. They make very good cookies, by the way. The Olgas in Australia are composed of an unsorted mixture of large boulders, sand, and mud, indicating that the materials must have been transported and deposited very rapidly. Receding floodwaters erode the land, creating river valleys. This explains why rivers are often so much smaller than the valleys they flow through today. They did not carve those valleys. Something else must have.
All right. Well, you know, that actually is a great moment for us to segue into Genesis chapter 7, looking at several verses. So we're going to look right here, chapter 7 of Genesis, verses 11 all the way through 24. So in the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day, on the second month, on that day, all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens and the floodgates were opened, and rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. On that very day, Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, together with his wife and the wives of his 3 sons, entered the ark. They had with them every wild animal according to its kind, all livestock according to their kinds, every creature that moves along the ground according to its kind, and every bird according to its kind, everything with wings. Pairs of all creatures that have the breath of life in them came to Noah and entered the ark. The animals going in were male and female of every living thing as God had commanded Noah. Then the Lord shut him in. For 40 days the flood kept coming on the earth, and as the waters increased, they lifted the ark high above the earth. The waters rose, and the ark floated on the surface of the water. They rose greatly on the earth, and the mountains and the high mountains under the entire heavens were covered. The waters rose and covered the mountains to a depth of more than 20 feet. Every living thing that moved on the earth perished, birds, livestock, wild animals, all the creatures that swarm over the earth, and all mankind.
They also swam too.
That's true. Everything on dry land that had the breath of life in its nostrils died. Every living thing on the face of the earth was wiped out, men and animals, and the creatures that move along the ground, and the birds of the air were wiped from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those with him in the ark. The waters flooded the earth for 150 days.
That's a long time.
I know.
So, a worldwide globe covering flood is clearly taught by the Bible. The only reason for thinking otherwise comes from outside the Bible. When we use the framework provided by Scripture, we find that the physical evidence from the rocks and fossils beautifully fit with what the Bible states.
So acceptance of a global flood begins with a belief in an infallible maker, God. In Romans 11:33-36, we read of God's infinite knowledge and unsearchable ways. Revelation 22:13 declares his existence from the beginning. Titus 1:2 reveals a characteristic belonging only to God: blamelessness. Believing in a local flood is to rely on fallible humans. As God says to Job in chapter 38, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Who enclosed the sea behind the doors when it burst forth from the womb? Have you journeyed to the vents of the sea or walked in the trenches of the deep?"
Those are good points, Christina. Very good points. Unfortunately, we don't have a counterpoint because our evolutionist correspondents refused to show up today. I think they had not so many words. So,
I have a question.
yes,
What did they make the ark out of?
I believe it was called 1-800-GO-FOR-WOOD. That's gopher wood.
That is correct. It was gopher wood.
That is correct.
A good question.
That question was sent in by Silas Moore.
Thank you, Silas. So,
Are there any other inquiries?
yes.
Anybody else have any questions? All right.
Well, clearly, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom and knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. I'm Matthew.
And I'm Christina. This has been another upper room update.
Good night and God bless. So, everybody, I hope y'all enjoyed that little presentation we did for y'all, talking about the local flood and how, honestly, it's just a ridiculous story. I mean, there's no reason for Noah to have gone through the lengths that he did, and no reason at all for God to have expected him to do that other than an example of faith, an exercise in faith, okay? But that's not what this was. This was God's wrathful judgment on the world because of all the sin they were committing, and him choosing Noah, who was a good man amongst all the world, to start his covenant with, okay? And then his descendants, Abraham to Jacob and on to Jesus, okay? So this was a world phenomenon. There are many, many facts to look at this, and the only reason you would even consider that the flood described in the Bible for Noah was a local event is if you're trying to come from a evolutionist standpoint, because otherwise the flood does completely destroy everything that they stand for. It allows for the fossils that we have, the oil that we have, not taking so long, being covered up and compressed under all that, tectonic shifting. There are so many things that we could go into, okay, that we just don't have time to explain.
Reed Hilton says, remember that the animals were adapting, not evolving.
That's right.
Good point,
True.
Reed.
Excellent.
And then Silas asked, how many people made the ark?
How many people made the ark? That's a very interesting question, Christina.
It is a great question. So in one of the many articles I had the opportunity to read, I actually came across one that nowhere in Scripture does it tell us that Noah did it all on his own. So it's very likely that he had some help. And remember, too, he did have sons, so at some point they would have been contributing as well. So definitely.
And there was a market economy at the time. You have to remember, people are trading and building
Right.
and
They had
selling, and
tools.
so he probably hired out some labor. I'm not saying he hired any from south of the border or anything, but I am saying that he hired people to help him do this work.
Right.
He probably even witnessed to them and told them about it, and they laughed at him and mocked him probably the whole time that they were working, but they still did it because I'm sure he paid good. If I knew the world was coming to an end and I needed to get an ark built, I'd pay all kinds of money. It's not going to do him any good after that.
How long did it take them to make it?
That is a very good question. Christina?
Well, okay, so as mentioned earlier, if you missed that, looking back in Scripture at Genesis 6:13, I apologize, at Genesis 6:3, God tells Noah that his spirit will not contend with man forever, and his days will be 120 years. And then we also read that Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters began. And he didn't have his first son until he was 500 years old. So looking in that time frame, we're going anywhere from 70 to 120 years, possibly, for Noah to have built the ark. And also remember that this is a story of epic faith. And when we read the Bible, we need to make sure that we don't put it in the confines of what our simple minds can really understand, but we recognize the great faith it really took for Noah to have started a project like this because they didn't even know what rain was. And so for God to tell him it's going to rain, Noah's like, what is the definition, please? You know, so.
Yep. And also
great
understand that they had the tools that they needed to do this. They had cranes to do this kind of thing. They might not have had steam engines and stuff like that, but they definitely had simple tools like cranes and levers and the wheel,
Right.
because I'm pretty sure Adam came up with that pretty quick and he started dragging stuff around. Or maybe even God told him about it while he was, I don't know, walking with them. He's like, hey, this will make your life a little easier. Why don't you do this? And they lived for 600 years.
Right. Well,
I
Noah's
think
days
in
were
that
over 9.
time, he probably figured some stuff out.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a good point.
Plus, shortly after that, after the flood, after all them tools were wiped out and they came back, they ended up creating the Tower of Babel that stretches into the heavens, it says. So they knew how to build this stuff, and they knew how to do it pretty quick. So building the ark in that time period,
Totally reasonable.
completely reasonable. And just like we said, if it had only been a local flood, honestly, if somebody told me, hey, I'm going to flood the area in 70 to 120 years or whatever, and it's going to kill everybody in this area, I need you to do all this work, I'd just be like, I'm going to move over there and just avoid it.
So that's a great question. Thanks, you guys.
All right. Would you like to? Any prayer requests? Or?
Well, I would like to give a shout out to all the middle school girls. Miss all of your beautiful smiling faces and hope everybody's doing well. Still thinking about all of you guys and praying for everybody. Make sure you let us know if y'all need anything. You know, we're not gonna know unless you tell us. So don't be afraid to reach out and communicate with us. We'd love to hear
Text,
from
call, comment,
y'all. Right.
Facebook, Instagram, whatever. I'll give a shout out to the people who keep all this running. We got Nathan here behind the scenes making things work. James was here earlier, getting it all set up and working. He's gone home.
James has been commenting online. He said he loves licorice, wasabi peanuts, and kimchi.
Me too. I actually was doing homemade fried rice and sesame chicken, so I'm right there with you.
Alright.
All right, so I'll close this out in prayer then. If we don't have any prayer requests, any prayer requests in the comments?
Reagan Martin says, hi, Miss Christina, Gracie, Jolie, Reagan, Reed, Silas, Jacob. Had quite a few students checking in tonight.
Alright.
Love when you guys check in
Yes.
on the comments.
And if you notice any of your friends not checking in, reach out to them. Let them know that you missed seeing them interact tonight. So,
All right, well, I'll say a prayer for us. Father, I just thank you for this opportunity. The way that you've set things up so that with technology in this day and age and everything that's going on, we're still able to reach out. We're still able to communicate, still able to do the Great Commission. Let's share your word with the world. Anybody could watch this and see it, not just necessarily the students that we're trying to reach out to. And so, Father, I ask that your spirit would just be on this and everything that we've said today and everything that we're doing, and that when people see this, that it will bring wisdom and knowledge and understanding for the ultimate purpose of, if they don't know your Son, that it'll soften their heart and open them up to ask the questions. What is that all about? Who is this about? And that's your Son, Jesus. Because from the beginning, he was the Word, and the Word was with God. The Word was God. And so, Lord, I ask that you would be with all our students and with just everyone, our friends, family, staff, people who are working, that you'll keep them safe in this time, and people will just use common sense in a lot of places. But, Father, you designed our bodies to handle this kind of thing, and I just ask that you would strengthen it to do that. Father, I thank you for bringing Madeline home. Lord, that has been a lot of prayer, and that has been a hard-fought battle to get that girl back home. Lord, I just ask prayer and a hedge of protection around her and her family, that she'll stay safe, that her immune system will start picking back up to do what it needs to be doing, and that you'll just let her continue to grow healthy and strong, and that everyone who knows that family will come to a stronger faith, and those who don't, it'll be an example and a testimony that they'll overcome. Father, I thank you, and I ask comfort for families and friends of anyone who has been impacted in this. We just love you, Lord, and we thank you, and we ask it all in your Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.